Thanks for joining us. And today what we're going to talk about is we had a summit of a number of, Trish, sorry to hear that, May Gray in Ventura. But you're probably going to have a better summer than we are here in Phoenix. So hopefully it goes your way. We hosted about 20 different leaders. Some were HR leaders, some were operations and business leaders. And we got them together to talk a little bit about what was on their mind in terms of talent strategies, talent issues, challenges, and really to kind of do a bunch of discussion and problem solving and best practice sharing. And so we thought it might be valuable to share that with you in terms of some of the key issues that were on their mind, why they were on their mind, what was the crux of it, and then some of the best practices that came out of it. So when we started off, we kind of kicked off and just started brainstorming with them. And this is, if you haven't been to our offices here, this is our training center at our offices here. So that was kind of the room set up. And then there were actual humans around the table, not just we made this up with our imagination. But what came out was these themes in terms of big global ones, right? A continuing theme of leadership assessment, training and development being really, really important. And that one of our observations was a number of organizations admirably have made a consistent investment in that. And we all know, right? Sometimes when things are going well, we've got the dollars and the time to do it. And then when things get tougher, we don't. But what we'd seen is some organizations that were consistent about this, regardless of that, because they know leaders have been underinvested in and underdeveloped. And wherever your leaders are, we just want them to get better. And a number of organizations, kind of through thick and thin, were sticking to their knitting in terms of we are going to consistently work on investing in training and leaders because there's no way to catch up fast if you haven't done it well. And it's too important, right? If you want to know what's the trajectory of an organization and what's the trajectory of their culture and where is this headed, tell me about their leaders, right? So that was a theme that came out. In a tougher environment, lots of organizations saying we need to sharpen our sales saw. When it was a little easier, sales was easier. Now that it's a little tougher for some, we need our salespeople to be better than they've been. Succession planning, career pathing, and talent hoarding is a theme. We're going to get into talent hoarding very specifically, but around succession planning, it's entirely too subjective, and the data the analysis collection process is long and exhausting. And by the time we get to let's talk about make decisions and build plans, everybody's kind of out of gas because it's taken so long just to get a very subjective, flawed process in place. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, another hot topic we're going to talk more about, and definitely a theme around more frequent contemporaneous feedback sessions. Lots of organizations going away from the annual performance review, if you will. And even if it's not just pure performance, but trying to have more contemporaneous feedback sessions that are more in the moment and more forward-looking. A number have gone to quarterly check-ins and trying to keep it simple, but consistent. And some even are progressing to monthlies so that it's not such an arduous task for the leader and for the employee. They actually might know where they stand on a more frequent basis and have a chance to have a dialogue instead of just a download. And we've had some clients who have been using PI a long time and have really gone a long, masterful way on their journey, and some who were just starting. And they all had the same question of what's next in terms of, we know there's so much PI can do, and a little bit of, I feel like we haven't done as much as we should, a little bit of guilty conscience. And we tried to say, the good thing is there is so much you can do with PI, right? There's always more you can do, but also that might create a little bit of, I feel bad that we haven't done enough. Don't feel bad you haven't done enough, right? Wherever we are is where we are, right? That right question is what's next? Let's figure that out. So those were some themes that got some conversation, and we're going to dive deeper in a minute here and highlight some things. But before I do, I just want to check in with all of you in the call here and see, are there any particular questions, anything you want to really make sure we talk about today, anything you most hope you can take away from this? So feel free to just go right in your chat and do that. But anything that you're most curious about based on those themes or anything you just brought before hearing that into today's webinar. So if there's something top of mind, use your chat and we'll make sure we hit those things for you. If I had the Jeopardy music, I'd play it right now while you're thinking and writing. Learning agility. Yep. Big topic. Okie doke. The question's not closed, open question. So if you're typing or thinking, go ahead and finish that thought. We'd love to hear from you. But in the meantime, we are going to Candace's point, talk a little bit about that cognitive piece, learning agility. It was one of the big things that came up and got a lot of conversation. Diversity, equity, inclusion, talent hoarding, conflict management, and then some software access for leaders. So out of all that, we're trying to break it down into some very actionable, insightful best practices we heard from a variety of clients that hopefully will translate into some ideas and even better, some tangible things you can do right now to go forward. So one of the things we heard, even from some clients that have used PI a while, is some didn't really have a good, comfortable understanding of what the cognitive assessment is, and more important, why it's so valuable. These are from some clients that have worked with PI for years and years really well. So we thought, let's start there for a moment and not make any assumptions. But so what on cognitive? The so what on cognitive, and this is from some significant meta-analysis and a ton of years of data, is it is the most predictive tool out there in terms of predicting performance. Up to 42% of job performance gets predicted by the cognitive assessment. We all hopefully love the behavioral assessment because it's interesting and it's fun and it's got, kind of the three-dimensional nuance to it, if you will. And a lot of folks are just nervous or uncertain about cognitive. It feels like a test. It's right and wrong, answers. There's 50 items. It's timed. It's 12 minutes. It feels like a test because it's kind of like a test, right? But the fact is that it's more predictive than the behavioral assessment. The nice thing is you get both and they're predicting different things. And as I said to the group here, if someone made me choose for our MindWire team and our own employees, use cognitive or use behavioral, but not both, what would you choose? It'd be cognitive. I wouldn't hesitate to make that decision in terms of how important it is, right? What is it? Well, the first thing is that we've gone and made it as intimidating sounding as possible by calling it cognitive, right? Makes everyone feel like, boy, is this about how smart I am? It's not, right? Learning agility is a really good term to use that I think helps translate it to, we're not measuring someone's IQ. It's certainly a subsection of intelligence and related to general IQ, but it's learning agility, which is speed, right? And speed is how fast is someone going to get something they don't know and turn it into knowledge, skill, an outcome, and a capability. It's all about speed, right? And what that translates to is, if you will, talent flexibility. So someone that has higher cognitive is more likely to move up levels in your organization and or more likely to be able to successfully move functions, right? To go from finance to operations to sales, make functional shifts as well as level shifts faster, more successfully. The more they have that learning agility or learning speed, the more that's possible. And sure, as we're sitting here, you're going to have some people that have lower cognitive that are great in their jobs and great at their jobs. And they're probably more likely to want to build on that knowledge and stick more to what they know, stay in their functional silo, maybe stay in their role a longer time so they can master and know everything about it and have that sense of comfort. And those often become your deep subject matter experts, right? And those are backbone people in your organization. So it's not just we want to only find the higher score cognitive folks, and that's the only thing that's good, right? Problem solving, figuring out new different coming up with different new ways to solve things with speed is another way to think about cognitive, right? It's how fast they get good at new different, something that they don't yet know or understand. And so the assessment, if you haven't used it, gives you a score, right? And that score is from a 100 to a 450. The norm score is a 250, which is 20 right out of 50. No one in their right mind who gets 20 right out of 50 thinks they're killing it, right? Everyone goes, well, that's a D plus, maybe not so great, but half the world is right there. And that actual 250 score is a good score for many of your jobs in your organization. And you're not going to have very many jobs that get into anything at 300 or above. Some of your most complex leadership jobs might be there, but not higher, right? So that's fine for a lot of jobs, 250, that average, even though it might not feel good to the person. But the predictive power of this learning agility assessment is a huge deal. And a lot of the clients that were using it talked about that with clients that weren't. And I think it helped get a number of our clients to go, we got to start using that. Because as Heroes pointed out in the chat, you have this tool already. It's included. It's part of your annual license, unlimited use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just if you don't know about cognitive, that's a start. If you want to know more, talk to your consultant and reach out to us, and we'll walk you through it, answer questions. We've got tools and guides on all this stuff for sure. But let's talk about why it's such a big deal, right? Because every organization is trying to figure out, how do we get better, right? And who among our organization would not just be good at this job, but maybe has the ability to do other things, other jobs, and or what if we put some of these high cognitive people on project teams or initiatives that are really important? What if they've never done it before? That speed of new different, that speed of figuring out things is a massive asset. It also helps just in hiring. If you've not built a cognitive job target, it's part of the job assessment process. You set a score, and then you look at candidates to see how well do they match on the cognitive requirements of the job. Excuse me. One of the things that people sometimes think about cognitive is it only matters if someone is learning the job, right? There's a learning curve for a new employee to get good at this. When you set a cognitive target, what it means is that's going to be the learning agility requirements of the job continuously, not just in the first 3 or 6 months until they learn it. It's saying this is the level of volume, complexity, uncertainty, ambiguity that's going to come at them regularly, right? So if you've got a job target at 250 and you've got a person at 180, it's not just that they're going to take longer than 6 months, which might be your average, to get good. They're constantly going to be in that feeling of, I can never keep up. It's going too fast. I can't get this figured out fast enough on the job, which that's not a recipe for engagement or performance or for happy campers, right? So the job target is, this is the continuous learning requirements of the job. As an example, just think about leadership jobs, right? You get into a leadership job and there's no desk manual where you go to page 312 and here's the answer to all of today's ambiguous, fast-moving, difficult, tricky human problems you're dealing with, right? There's a constant flow of ambiguity, uncertainty, and what's the right answer. You have to figure that out and figure it out quickly and proficiently in leadership. And there's not going to be a slowdown to that, right? Experience, skill, knowledge helps, but it only helps. It doesn't eradicate the learning speed requirements, if you will. Assessing potential. Who among our new hires or our existing army of folks might have that potential to move up, or functional areas, or might be the people we want to throw on project teams where they're going to figure out new and better mousetraps, if you will. And who are our folks where they're going to be great subject matter experts, and we should recognize that so we keep them building on that subject matter expertise where they're going to be most successful. Innovation and improvement. We don't have any clients that aren't working on getting better. Not one I know of who has called and said, we're just going to let things really slide around here, right? We're going to decrease every target we've got. Everyone wants to get better. And when you know the cognitive of your workforce, you go, here are a bunch of people that can help us because their brain is really wired to do this really, really well. right? So that's why these things are so important, because it gives you such a different dimension than behavioral. And collectively, it all of a sudden is a hidden resource that you have. But if you don't know it, you don't know necessarily how to tap it, right? Or you couldn't tap enough of it to make a difference by being very purposeful about it in the organization. So some of the best practices our client shared was having job targets really, really helps. You're going to have some job targets where the job requirements from a learning agility standpoint are over here. They're not high. Okay, that's great, because if the job target is here and you have candidates right there, you go, good, they're a great fit for this job. Not we shouldn't hire them just because they have a lower cognitive. You're going to have some job targets that are lower, some are at the norm or the 50th percentile, and a few that are higher like this. So a job target helps you know, boy, this candidate is probably going to be great at this job or exceed the learning agility requirements, right? Good news. Or they're a long ways off. And even though I like their behavior and their experience, it's probably going to be difficult for them to ever be successful here. And that's not what we want to do to people, right? We want to set them up for success so you can like the job, be good at it. If you haven't used cognitive, a number of clients who are going to start using it are going to start with applicants, because the clients that have used it said people complete the assessments. You don't lose applicants. You don't lose applicant flow because of this. And that gives you a good way to kind of learn the data, understand what it means, start seeing how it plays out in your hires, and get comfortable with it without having to necessarily introduce it to your incumbents before you're comfortable and confident about it. Others, you talked about using the term learning agility to just make it less darn scary than cognitive. Learning agility, I think, has a better connotation of what does it mean? Oh, I get it. How fast someone learns, right? Cognitive, just, I don't care how much you explain it. It feels like you're telling me how smart I am or am not. And there's not a person on the planet, when you talk about smart, that wants to be average, right? Every single person's cognitive score, no matter what it is, every person says the same thing. I wish I'd done a little better. Wish the score was a little higher, right? I've met two people in my entire life who got 48 out of 50 right. 48 out of 50. They are in the 99.9th percentile. Guess what both of them said? I'm kind of mad about those one or two I missed. I wish I'd have, right? No matter where they are, they want to be better. So learning agility is a better term that, for a number of reasons, feels less scary. And you can use that or anything you want, for sure. Others are saying, we're using this learning agility, this cognitive piece, to find out who we have that could very specifically be deployed on project teams or individual projects where we know that high learning agility is something that we can tap into, right? Try things out, new, different, build better mousetraps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last thing that people are doing with this, I think, makes a lot of sense, being very transparent about behavioral results, because they're just positive, but having the cognitive information kept closer to the vest. Some organizations have that in HR only, and they might tell a hiring manager they are below or at or above target, and that's it. Some organizations don't share any cognitive information with the hiring manager or the person. And then there's about a third who they'll let the person know their score and let the manager know the score and what it means, but they don't publicize it broadly, because I don't need Hero in the break room taunting me because she got a 380 and I got a 280, right? We probably don't really know what it means, but because there's a score, there's an automatic connotation that higher is always better and a lower score must naturally be worse, instead of a lower score might be perfect for the job they're in and perfect for most jobs. So a lot of organizations are trying to keep it a little bit more private, at least between the employee and the leader. And then some restrict it further than that. And you can always start with the most restrictive, right? Maybe you're going to share that are at or above or below target. And as you get more comfortable, maybe you will share more information with leaders and the person. On any of these things, let us know. We'll talk with you about it. But these are the things that clients talked about they were doing, and hopefully it gives you a couple ideas and places you might start. Any questions on cognitive before we go on? Okay. DE&I was the second big topic of conversation, and that topic of conversation largely, but not exclusively, was around hiring and promotion to advance diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. And right, for many, many, many years and decades, there have been diversity, equity, inclusion efforts out there, but this happens to women and people of color disproportionately, which is they don't have the experience because they haven't been given the opportunity. So now they're on that vicious cycle, right? That even unintentional bias continues that cycle and is preventing opportunities. So what was the conversation about? Well, the DE&I is of more significance than ever, and more efforts are made in this front than we've probably seen in all of our lifetimes, in a significant way to make things better. But it's difficult if DE&I is something that you're doing separate from business outcomes. And part of what got a lot of discussion, and there's a lot of clients taking actions on it, is how do you see through a lack of experience on the resume so that you could help advance DE&I efforts, whether it's outside hires or promotions, right? And we discussed the Florida State University meta-analysis that looked at some 60 different studies on pre-hire experience and how much it correlates to performance and retention. And the answer is it doesn't. There's very, very little correlation between pre-hire experience and performance. Even if the person has done the same job that they're being hired for and have done it for years and it's the same kind of level, it has very little to do with will they perform well at your job in your company. Even as practitioners of this stuff here at MindWire, this study stunned me about how conclusive it was that it has little to do with this. So what were best practices? One thing clients are doing is, again, using job targets, behavioral and cognitive targets, to identify, select, and promote those without the resume, because it's a better predictor of performance. And it helps address this piece that DE&I can't be separate from business outcomes. If you know, boy, they've got great behavior and cognitive, now you know if they're a great match for that job, they're likely to be good at it, get good at it fast if they don't have the experience, and be highly engaged. And you can make much better bets on hire, promotion, et cetera, and not get stuck in the wheel of they don't have experience. Well, how do they get experience? This is
Tom, can you talk for a second about where clients are using the assessments in the hiring pipeline?
Yeah, that's a great point, Hero. So right up front, meaning not after you get down to 4 or 5 finalists, because when you wait to use the tools, resume screening is going to come into play. And then phone screening based on experience is going to come into play. And you're not going to be able to see through the resumes that might look good on paper, but aren't the right fit for you behavioral and cognitively. More importantly, you're going to miss widening your funnel to those people where the right behavior and cognitive is there, but the resume isn't. So the sooner you initiate the assessments right up front, the more you're going to widen your funnel of candidates and have more people that your competitors don't know about who would be great if you gave them the chance, for sure. Also, inclusion, right? If you're the only woman in a department, only person of color in a department, you might already feel, boy, I am, just not with others like me so much. But what tools can you use? If you look at engagement surveys, my manager understands and values my strengths and who I am is one of the questions that's most correlated to high engagement. Using their behaviors and motivating needs, the things that are on a management strategy guide, is one piece of a solution of creating a more inclusive environment. And the nice thing is it works with everybody, right? It's not just for women or people of color or other folks that you're trying to address with this. It's a way to kind of tide that lifts all boats. How does a leader know how to adjust and recognize the needs of one person versus another? Again, a great use around inclusion. These two things alone aren't enough, but they can be big difference makers. And you're able to say to the business, we're also going to get better outcomes by doing these things. It's not just that we want to do DE&I for good efforts. Now it's part of the business strategy. So DE&I, talent hoarding. This was unanimously an issue across the board. With lots of leaders from different organizations saying leaders continue to hoard their talent. They don't want them to get promoted. They don't want to move them around the organization. They don't want to share them. And I probably don't need to say more. We're familiar with this issue. Why it's top of mind is with a more willingly mobile workforce than ever, this is heightening recruitment and engagement challenges, retention and engagement challenges. And especially with your good and excellent people, right? It's the worst kind of punishment. Who's going to leave? The ones that are really marketable and great, right? Who's not going to leave? The mediocres and the slugs, unfortunately, they're not going anywhere, even though you might wish they would. So what's at risk here with talent hoarding is just your best people. And we've got a workforce that has learned well through the pandemic. I can move jobs and I should move jobs if I'm not getting what I need, right? So a couple of really practical best practices. A couple of clients talked about, we've entirely removed the requirement that you have to be in a job a year or whatever it is to apply for another job. Just removed it. And by the way, one of the organizations that did this is a contact center where they know they're going to get people for a year or two, and a bunch of them are either going to move up or be gone. And they said progressively, into their credit, we're not going to have a 1-year requirement. That's gone. Removing the requirement for a manager to approve someone to apply for another job. Another thing that a number of organizations have done and have said that has had a dramatic impact, because not only is it a message to their employees that they don't have to get the permission, they don't have to be here a year, but it also implies we're all in favor of you growing your career here with us. Another client does this piece that was astounding to me and wowed me, which is when they new hire, onboard new people, they go and look in the PI software using our analytics platform, and they find out what are the other jobs here at this organization that this person might be great at. And when they get hired, as part of their first week, they get a list of, here's some career paths and jobs for you beyond just the job we've hired you for that we want you to start thinking about. So imagine you're a new person at a company, you've been hired for this job, and they're reinforcing, this is why we hired you for this job, but they're also saying, we've already thought with data about where you might be able to go. There's not a clearer message in the world that this is a possible career place, not just a job for you than that. And this organization's gone further. They give resources to go explore these jobs. They have leaders who know people are going to come want to sit in and learn more about it. They've built a culture around it. But even if you don't go that far, what if you just said to people, we're thinking about this as a career for you, not just a job. And we've got a list we want to just wet your whistle with. Low effort, low cost, but what a message, right? And I think every single person that was in our meeting wrote furious notes about this one. Another client saying, we know the traditional functional career paths, but we've been working on using our behavioral cognitive job targets to identify non-traditional career paths, meaning person with these behavior and learning agility, not just this functional area, but you know what else they could do? They could go over here or here and learn these things, and we could teach them these things. And what it's doing is helping them identify career paths beyond the obvious ones, because leaders don't know, right? Even the best leaders, they don't know all the career paths that are possible in an organization. And it's even harder for them to guess who might be good at what. And so the leader's advice to their direct report, even good ones, is just based on what they know or they're comfortable with, when what the real paths are bigger. So this organization is doing work to say, how do we identify data-driven, non-traditional career paths that give our really good people other options? And then the final thing is an organization that was so fed up with talent hoarding, they started compensating leaders for being net talent exporters. People that made lateral moves or get promoted out of that group, leader got paid. Yeah, that puts your money right where your mouth is. But some of these things are really simple to do and have made a significant impact, because convincing leaders not to talent hoard, we're all going to grow old before we get to that, right? There has to be some institutional, organizational steps taken to kind of end around your leaders. We're not talking about your best leaders, right? Your best leaders are probably already good talent exporters because they're really confident. I'll hire another good person, develop another good person. I can do it. I can repeat it. We're talking about the middle and bottom, right? That are really causing you pain, and only with your best people. So don't worry about it. It's no big deal, right? I love some of the simplicity of these suggestions that people are doing. All right. So another theme that we talked about, delivering difficult feedback remains difficult, right? Even for some of those really high A, maybe low B leaders, you would think, boy, they won't hesitate to drop the hammer. Even for them, it's difficult, and isn't done. When what's true is employees want to know, where do I stand? They want honest, candid feedback, even when it might be difficult for them to hear, because how do they get better? How do they grow? How do they have increased self-awareness? They don't if this doesn't happen, right? And especially important when we're all even more worried than ever about retention and engagement. Something that's hard and unpleasant maybe for others becomes less likely to happen. Part of the conversation was also, we've done crucial conversations or radical candor, and those are really good concepts and tools in kind of an approach and a philosophy, but they don't necessarily tell me how I should do this with Hero, even if I'm all in on the idea of radical candor. I might have the concept right and just be me and screw it up and have the message not really heard by Hero. So the conversation was about, how do we build some confidence and willingness and likelihood of success by leaders to use PI data? So we shared this little process with people, and we'll make sure you get it as part of attending this webinar, which is first, how do I understand myself, right? For example, if I'm an A over B leader, when I'm delivering difficult feedback, what might I do well? Well, they're very direct, they hold people accountable, and they're pretty sugar-free, right? So that's good. Will they do it? Probably. What's the challenge? It's more telling than coaching. They might be a little blunt. They might be a little too rough. And you can kind of see based on the different factor combos so that a leader could get a sense of what they might do well, what they might not do well. That's a good starting point to raise self-awareness. The second piece then becomes, okay, what might the response be? So if I'm talking to Hero, right, who happens to have lowest A, right, she's very harmonious and collaborative. Ooh, she might give in if I'm a little blunt and tough. She might find it personally bruising. It might lower her confidence. And then I'm going to look at her highest factor, her D, and now it feels like she's made a mistake. And her standard is 0 mistakes. And that might be really, really hard. And she might not have the proper perspective and place context to it. So if I look at her low A and her high D before I give her difficult feedback, I go, okay, that tells me something. So I have to watch out for that reaction. Now, what do I do? And that's the next piece, right? So when I give this feedback to Hero, I'm going to let her know how I'm going to help. I'm going to reassure her that I've got confidence in her and that we'll go together. And I'm going to provide her high D some detailed examples, clarity of expectations. I'm going to tell her, hey, this isn't the end of the world. This isn't a crime against humanity. It's just this big, and we're going to fix it. And we're going to talk about it frequently while you're working on it, right? Just that awareness of, I know this might be devastating with her lowest A, highest D. So how do I adjust my approach a little bit that way? So there's a 4 or 5 slides in here with a little how-to in between with it that we'll send you. But the idea is, if you can get leaders a little more confident that they'll be successful and that the message will resonate and be effective, they're more likely to lean into it, right? They're more likely to try it because they go in feeling, I've got a chance for this to succeed. And even our toughest, hard-nosed leaders don't always love giving feedback. And if they do, they may not get it right, right? You go back here and you go, that A over B leader will walk away and go, I told them they need to fix it. Problem solved, right? And then if it's Hero, she said, okay, you bet. And privately, she's devastated. And I haven't told her how I'm going to help. And I've not done anything to say, here's exactly perspective and how we'll give you feedback. I think it's fixed, and Hero is stuck, devastated, and probably less productive than she was before it. So this piece came out to say, we have to give this candid feedback and help people develop and grow. But we've got leaders who are gun shy about doing this, and it's universal. So we hope that this tool can help you and your leaders with just doing it a little more effectively, having it be heard and having it be productive. Last piece, which is HR can't do it all. So there's a mixture of clients who HR has the access to the software, leaders don't have access to the software. And the problems described were, I'm having to explain and defend it, in terms of the data, the tools, et cetera. I'm doing too much administrative stuff for my leaders, and there's not enough meat to go around. I'm not also losing time to be their strategic advisor and not their software administrator, right? I can't have that happen. And my leaders aren't learning this and starting to get this language and tool into their vocabulary enough. And so why it was important is because as the PI software has evolved, there's more and more tools like a interview guide or management strategy guide or relationship guide that a leader can choose to use in a moment, right? And that's how leaders do stuff. I need to do this thing right now. I've got to do a quarterly check-in with Hero. Okay, maybe I can print a management strategy guide and that could help me, right? Or a relationship guide. I want to sit down and talk with Hero about some of the ways we work together because we've got some sticky wickets. Can I just print that guide and use it? There's a whole bunch of tools like that that now are just in time for leaders that make it so it's all the more reason than ever to give leaders access. And so best practices we heard were a couple of clients have done pilot groups where they looked and found a group of leaders who seemed interested and willing and said, we're going to try it with you. And we did software tutorials, Mindwire did for those leaders. So you didn't have to help them know how to navigate the basics, and then gave them a use case, which is if you just give them software without maybe a specific place to start or a use case, they may or may not do okay, right? But if you give them a use case or a starting point, then they go, okay, I can't wait to go do that because that will give me immediate value. And by the way, we've had a number of clients give software access to all their leaders, and we have yet to have a client come back and say anything other than, I'm so glad we did this. There has not been one incident where this went sideways on us. Everything has been, I wish we'd have done this years ago. So listen to your peers here. If you're not giving leaders software access, I beg you, give them software access because they will start learning this. They will start getting value from it. And if you're in HR, you can change the way you're spending time on this. You trust your leaders with way more sensitive information than what's in the PI software, and they cannot screw it up, I promise you, right? There's ways you can even prevent them from doing anything with a job target if you want to and limit their access, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're at all intrigued, start with a small group and we'll help you, and it will go really well. Because every client we've had do this with is thrilled that they did it. Now, a use case. Where do we start these leaders off so they have something specific to go do and they're not just, surfing the web and in your PI software without intention? So we have a process called onboarding with PI, which is a sequential way to onboard a new employee, but the onboarding is with an asterisk. The asterisk is it's not just for onboarding, right? You could onboard a new employee, sure. You could also onboard employees maybe new to your team or has changed teams. What about maybe the team gets a new leader? Or this would just be a really good thing to do with leaders and their existing team to help them impact their leadership effectiveness and trust with their employees. So where can you use it? Any of these situations. And this is a great use case for when you get your leaders going in the software to give them something to do. And the process looks like this, which is start with the PI behavioral assessment, right? And this might be in the first week or two if they're new, or the first 30 days, right, with a leader in their team. And they're simply going to sit down and talk about the strongest behaviors that resonated, the management strategies that resonated. And if it's Hero and I, and Hero's my direct report, Hero's going to start. I'm going to say, Hero, look at the report. Tell me what stuff really stood out and sounds like you. And she's going to highlight that. And if I'm a decent leader, I'm asking her a couple questions. Tell me more. And then when she gets to the end, management strategies, she's going to say, oh yeah, these two really matter. I'm going to say, give me one or two things I should know about working with you. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to share with leader my strongest behaviors. I'm going to share with Hero as a leader my strongest behaviors and what my management strategies mean and what she should do and not do with me. What this does is reinforces, if it's a new hire, this is why you're here. We hired you for all this amazing stuff, but we want to get to know you. So instead of taking 6 months to know these things about each other, we can do it in a couple of weeks, right? So the next month, you might sit down with a management strategy guide. And now that, right, we're going to talk a little bit about what things am I doing consistently well with Hero, and what are 1 or 2 things that I could do, start doing or do differently that would be even more effective at driving engagement and performance. Management strategy guide is kind of the how-to day-to-day with an employee. Next month or 2 after that, we're going to look at the relationship guide, which will compare Hero and I and tell us our strengths together and tell us a couple of cautions and tips. And we're going to look at that together and find the one thing where we go, oh yeah, we do that together kind of thing, or we don't do that. How do we adjust on the one thing that might help us be better? And if you want to get really ambitious and get a double gold star, at 4 months in, you might take out the coaching guide. The PI coaching guide takes the job target and the person's BA and it identifies areas of fit and gaps, and it suggests coaching questions that a leader could use to engage someone in this. So even if you don't do all 4 of these things, what if you started with the 2 or 3? Once a month, leaders, why don't you sit down with your folks in the first month and do this? Next month, we want you to do this. And the third month, this. And for you overachievers, get to the coaching guide. This is an example of a use case. It gives them something very specifically to go do now that they have software access, and you don't have to do it for them. And once they start having some success, right? Because if I get 1 or 2 little nuggets from Hero in this behavioral review discussion, and she does too, I assure you, we're both going to go, that was really valuable. That was really good. We got some stuff out of that. Now I'm encouraged to do this, and I'm going to get a little more value, right? And keep going, and they're going to be learning as they go. So there's a deck and a guide that you'll get as part of this webinar on how to do this onboarding asterisk, right? It's not just for breakfast anymore. Remember that campaign? This is not just for onboarding. This is for leaders with their existing employees. Because even if they've worked together for 10 years and have a good relationship, I absolutely guarantee they will learn things and get insights with each other that will help it be better. So the way the tool looks is on any of these steps, like this step 1, right? The behavioral assessment review. It gives a little bit of what are the tools you'll use, what's the value, and some tips. So this is the low D version of it, right? For your low CD leaders who aren't going to read anything else. For your others who are either really interested or have more D or higher C, there's actually a guide that has in-depth, step-by-step instructions on every one of these steps of the process along the way. So this give PI software access, yes. And if you give them a use case like this, then they'll go do something, and then they will start coming back to it and looking at more of the data and getting there on their own. And you don't have to do that for them, right? And that's critical for sure. And as PI continues to develop more and more of these kind of management strategy, relationship guide tools that are really easy to use without having expert knowledge, we can keep going for sure. The other nice thing is if you give access, we can actually measure activity for you. So we can get some reports out of the PI software for you that show you, okay, we gave some managers access. Well, Tom and Hero haven't been in there at all. Let's go ask them if they need help, if they don't understand, if they don't see value. And then these other 3 or 4 leaders, man, they've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. This is great. We're seeing them engage in the tool. So we can give you data to help you know who's been doing what and what tools are they using and when. And activity doesn't mean outcomes, but they're probably not in there just for their health, running reports and, using tools and analytics in most cases. So hopefully that gives everybody some thoughts, some ideas around these topics. And as always, right, if you need some help, just reach out to us, call your consultant, hit us up at, support@mindwaregroup.com, and we'll work with you to help you build any of these strategies out. So you're going to get this recording. We'll give you a little checklist on some of these best practices that we talked about. The deck and the guide around conflict management or difficult feedback, the deck and the guide around onboarding with PI tools. So I'll just remind you before we wrap up, something that I was really struck by that I mentioned earlier, which is we had some clients who have done a ton with PI and built it out and developed it in excellent, in-depth ways. And they said, I feel like we're underutilizing it. I know there's so much more we can do. And we had some clients who are at the brand new stage who said the same thing. And I think it's just, I was a client, I felt that way. Let yourself off the hook for that, right? Don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're behind. That's not productive. That's not helpful, right? And it's not fair to you or your organization. Because the good news is there's always more you can probably do. That's what's wonderful about the tool. The bad news is it'll make you feel a little bit that way. Don't allow yourself to do that, because wherever you are is fine, right? Let's just help you figure out what are the next steps that would be productive, right? And that's dependent upon your org, what's important to your business strategy, your talent strategy. But please let yourself off the hook, because no matter who the client is, they all say the same thing. And we do too. We look at all of our clients and we're like, man, we want to have them a little farther along than they are. We got to help them more. It's the right spirit, but don't let that make you feel like I'm not successful. I haven't done enough, because it's just not true, right? And the most important thing is, where do we go next? What's the next right thing we could do? And that's where we want to help you with that, right? Let's make it easy. We have lots of these best practices with even more depth. We've seen it, hundreds of times, and we want to help you with that. So let us know if we can. If there aren't any questions, I want to wish everybody a great rest of your week. Our next webinar, May 17th. We hope you will join us for that. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week, everybody. I hope spring springs wherever you are. Thanks for joining us.